So in our little series on the Beethoven Hammerklavier Sonata that you seem to enjoy watching as much as I enjoy making them, I would like to talk with you today about one of the most mysterious metronome marks, I think, in the history of the metronome, which is the quarter note 138 that some editions give for the first movement of the Hammerklavier Sonata, where Beethoven clearly gives half note 138. You will find that quarter note 138 in all the editions that Moscheles made, and also in the first English edition by Ferdinand Ries, Beethoven's student. Contrary to the exact reason that Ries had to change the half note 138 and quarter note 138, we are very well informed by Ignaz Moscheles. If you read the Schindler biography in the English translation, you will find that that edition is edited by Moscheles. So you'll have a lot of footnotes in which Moscheles commented on the things Schindler is saying, which is extremely important and interesting. And there in the supplement of the biography, where a few letters of Beethoven and contemporaries are printed, Moscheles commented on the letter in which Beethoven gave the metronome marks to Ferdinand Ries. And so he said the following: I have, in my edition of this sonata, marked the time of the first movement 138 of Melzer's metronome, because Beethoven himself had fixed that number. He, according to Wegeler's Notizen, gives it with a minim, I with the crotchet. But neither of these can, to my mind, be made to suit the character of the movement. The minim increases it to so fearful a prestissimo as Beethoven could never have intended, since he desired the assai, originally prefixed to the allegro, to be omitted. The crotchet slackens the movement all too much, and although I have in my intention allowed Beethoven's numbers to remain, in deference to the great man, yet I would advise the player to hold a middle course, according to the following mark, half note 116. I'll come back to this, but it's important to note that Moscheles suggested in fact another metronome number for the allegro, half note 116. In the same letter to Ries, Beethoven mentions also another metronome number that is quite problematic, that's that of the fugue. So Beethoven writes half note 144, whereas all editions today have quarter note 144. The reason why this is almost never mentioned is because Moscheles again in the same book makes a remark in the footnote: this minim should be a crotchet, an error which originates either in a misprint in Dr. Wegeler's Notizen or in Beethoven's own manuscript letter to Ries. As much as we perhaps at first see a parallel between the correction of this metronome number and that metronome number, they are actually different, because this is considered by Moscheles as a misprint. He wants to keep the 144 as much as he wants to keep the 138, so the speed of the metronome is not touched in this edition as in all the other editions. Well, there are some later editions, we're going to talk about that, where the speeds are altered a little bit, but not too much. But in this case of the fugue, he's completely satisfied with the result. He says it's clearly a mistake. So what did Moscheles actually mean by that? You might say that's an irrelevant question. He means half note 138 is too fast, quarter note 138 is too slow. Indeed, it's as simple as that, I think, though you have in the article the preface printed in the Wiener Urtext. I was referring to that in last week's video as well. So Sonleitner makes the case in this preface for the so-called variable use of the metronome. That's a kind of invention by Erich Schwandt and later by Talsma in 1980, where in fact you could say everything above allegretto is whole beat or double beat, and everything below allegretto, so from andante down, is single beat. Now Talsma was heavily criticized for that, also by Lorenz Gradient, because there is actually in the history not a single source that backs this up. And moreover, you will see that if you refuse to apply the whole beat reading to andantes and adagios, that also there similar technical problems play as in the faster movements. So there is actually not really a difference between the treatment of metronome readings in that time. So Talsma was clearly wrong on this. But what Sonleitner wants to introduce is a kind of variable plus system, where he says, well, everything beyond allegretto and allegretto is simply whole beat or double beat. Everything from andante downwards is also double beat, unless the note value in the metronome mark already is halved compared to the time signature. Well, this gets really complex and is in fact hard to defend, since you will see that for the slow movements, for instance, the edition that Czerny made of Beethoven, Czerny has made 4 or 5 editions of Beethoven's works, and in several of the slow movements, and in all the movements in fact, he changed this metronomization over time. It's not a lot, but there are slight differences. And so you will see in slow movements as well that he, for instance, in one occasion gives quarter note 50, and in a later edition, for instance, 8 note 108. So that alone actually undermines this theory that in the slow movements that there the variable use of the metronome, even in the more complex system of Sonleitner, applies. And so what Sonleitner is actually here in this introduction saying, that this difference, although he actually applies only the variable use of the metronome in general for the andante movements and slower, but nevertheless for this movement a possible explanation is that this was a metronome mark as a proof of the variable use of the metronome. So Sonleitner reads the single beat and this one whole beat. But that's not possible, for the simple reason here that if that were true, then in Moscheles' understanding, this metronome number is quarter note 130 as well as this one. And so you cannot say that this is too fast if both tempi are the same. So I think we can exclude that option once and for all, and would make the discussion much simpler. You basically have scholars who defend the single beat reading. We have made a lot of videos also on the Hammerklavier Sonata, especially on the Hammerklavier Sonata, how problematic this is, or you have the whole beat reading. Now, interesting, what is the effect of these 3 metronome numbers in whole beat reading on the Hammerklavier Sonata? I have recorded on the Fritz the first page of the Hammerklavier Sonata and each 3 of these tempi in whole beat reading. Now with this microphone, so don't pay attention to the sound, it's just for a matter of demonstration. And the perspective I took is that all 3 tempi in whole beat reading somehow, somewhere must make sense. So this we should feel is too fast, turns the piece into a kind of allegro assai, maybe even a presto. This is too slow, and then let's check what this tempo actually is about. The interesting thing for me to do this experiment is that you see in this metronome mark 138 for the quarter note and whole beat reading, indeed this piece gets too slow. But still, for instance at the beginning, you will see that the melodic lines with all those tiny little slurs and all these accentuation marks, that somehow this is not so much nonsense as we would say at first. So I'm not pleading to have this metronome mark and whole beat reading as a standard. The only thing I'm saying is you can feel and you can understand what Moscheles felt when he published. And after all, he published that metronome number. So in one way or another, this metronome mark must for him also have been not utterly nonsense, and it isn't. But overall, the character of the piece loses brilliance, I would say. That certainly in this metronome mark is there. But if you come from this metronome mark to that tempo indication, you feel it as really, really, really fast. And this tempo indication, this 116 for the half note and whole beat reading, double beat reading, is, I think, a very, very, very good tempo for the Hammerklavier Sonata. It matches all the aspects of the piece and gives you the room to play the piece in a brilliant way and yet also in a cantabile way. One of the things that Beethoven has clearly mixed in this sonata is the cantabile kind of operatic style with the pianistic brilliance. So both of them together, both of these aspects together, fit very well in the 116. Hope you liked this video and it was helpful to you. If it was, please give this video a thumbs up, since that's important, it seems, for YouTube algorithm. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet and this is your first video, please hit the subscribe button, also the bell icon to get notified so you don't miss anything from our uploads. And if you would like to support the things we are doing, which in a way enables us to make these videos for you and become part of our inner circle, this inner circle for authentic sound, there's a link here and in the description box. I would appreciate it enormously, even if you consider checking it out. So that was it for today. Thanks for watching and see you soon again.